There will be peace in the valley someday. There will be peace in the valley for me.
Even in the beginning, when we moved in together, we would sleep in the bedroom and it has those beautiful French doors open. And because I'm from Belgium and I'm not really aware of any danger, I would insist of having the doors open the whole night and just sleep almost under the trees and under the stars. And we would lay in bed and the sound of the owls would be there.
And there was no reason to worry about anything that we knew. Got a mountain on the one side and just surrounded by trees. So it truly feels like we're in nature.
Yeah.
And the pleasure of being able to sleep with the doors open and hear the birds, and really amazing. It's not like that anymore.
No.
Not even close.
Not at all.
Not even close.
In the early days in Hout Bay, when the home invasions, Hout Bay never had home invasions. We never knew the word home invasion, home robbery, but it started, we suspect it was Angolan war veterans from Namibia, Angola, that were coming down and living in a particular part of Hout Bay.
Ovamos was living in Donseyaki in Mizamo yetu. They were child soldiers. Now they're grown up. Now they're teaching our children in the community to do the crime for them. 60% of children in IY is not going to school. They're loitering around in Mizamo yetu, doing nothing, just smoking this tuk-tuk and everything and drinking, alcohol abuse and stealing. That is not good. I would like our children to have a better education.
I think it was around about 2009 with the introduction of the Child Justice Bill, where children are almost immune from being arrested or any consequences. If a child is caught carrying a suitcase back to wherever he's going and he's confronted by security service provider or a policeman, he can look the policeman in the eye and say, I found it on the river. I'm taking it home. I found it because he did find it, because an older boy told him to go and have a look under the bush. There's something there. Bring it home.
An example of the age group we're dealing with. He's the lead guy. He's going around the corner to see if there are police waiting. Here's one of the guys who broke into the resident's house carrying some of the goods. And here come the couriers. These guys can only be 7 or 8 years old running along carrying bags of goods. They're tiny, they're tykes.
Being a tour guide and getting virtually hundreds of people every year here to Cape Town, and they all say, wow, this is a beautiful place in Chapman's Peak. And if you could see it on the left hand side here, I'm looking right on the back of Table Mountain. It's one of the new natural wonders of the world, all fair and square. What they don't tell you that my daughter was now mugged for 2 times, I think, for this year. What I don't appreciate anymore is if kids which are innocent get stabbed, as my daughter was. And a good example before, I have many pictures of her sleeping on the lawn, lying there, or just being a child. And now that she is actually adult, where she should be in control of herself, I'm coming home on a beautiful day, sun is shining and every single window is locked two doors in front are locked, not closed, locked.
So I generally don't go outside regardless of the fact that I live in a very beautiful area and I enjoy being outside. I enjoy working with plants, with finding things, and I generally just don't do that anymore. I stay locked in my room if I'm alone. I don't go outside. Yeah, I generally just don't feel safe. I won't keep doors open or windows just in case someone can get in. I leave more or less the same time every morning. When my dad is here, so when he's not on tours, he usually comes out with me, so I don't have to wait for the gate to close. Otherwise, I open it a minimal amount and have pepper spray in my hand ready, and then just wait for the gate to close and then drive off. One morning, I left the house to go to work, and just as I came out of the gate, my scooter had switched off. So as I looked down, I just wanted to obviously switch it on again, and I checked my left and right. And then all of a sudden there was a guy coming towards me.
She got hit with a brick against the helmet on the scooter.
A few seconds later I looked up again, and there he was standing with a knife in his hand. So I then jumped off my scooter to run away, and I ran. He chased me and he pushed me against the curb on the other side of the road, and he pulled my bag and cut it, I'm guessing.
The bag was snatched right in front of the gate, and then it gets a little bit too much.
And then at some point during this process, he stabbed me in the hand.
When she got stabbed, we reported it to the police, and they took a statement, and next day she phoned me and said from work here that guy who mugged me yesterday just now drove past. So I asked where to. It was just before 7 o'clock. I got into my car. I looked for the car. The description was quite clear. It was a red Toyota taxi, very battered and bumped up. Went to the local ShopRite. That was the closest. Couldn't find him. Went to the nearby Spar and eventually found him there. I followed him then. He realized that he was chased. Went into the local township, Mandela Park. I cornered him there and caught him. I phoned the police. They were about, for normal fit person, 10 minutes on foot away from where I had the guy. And after 3 phone calls and more than 20 minutes later, eventually a cop car came. They got the guy, brought him to the station, and the first thing they said is my daughter has to identify the guy. So I got her out there, brought her to the police station. She identified him positively and was treated by the police like she didn't know what she was doing. Are you sure? And why do you say it's him? And this and that. She was actually afterwards really finished with the world and said, Dad, I don't need this in my life.
Civilians were trying to fight crime, and they're not experienced. And they would be pointed out as bad people because they had pointed out something that shouldn't be happening.
When I came the next morning to the police station, the guy was gone. I asked the policeman in charge here, what happened? Where is the guy? No, we let him go. He's a minor. I said, what do you mean he's a minor? He was driving a taxi. No. His mom came with a piece of paper which showed that he was only 15 years old. I said, okay, good. Then you at least laid a charge for driving underage. No, they didn't do that either. Till today, nothing came out, absolutely nothing.
The police will tell you there is a process that's followed. The children are picked up in an unmarked car, taken back to the police station. Their parents are called, and there's a process which follows involving counsellors. This just never ever happens. Firstly, they would get bundled in the back of a police van, taken to the police station and told to go home, or they'd be dropped off somewhere. And if they were actually taken to the police station, all they had to do was cry to the prosecutor later on and say they were thrown in a police van and they weren't put in an unmarked car, so they would be released straight away, nothing would happen.
Peter and I were drawn back to Hout Bay. Because of that beauty, despite it having grown considerably, it still had the quaintness of a pretty village and quietness and peacefulness and easy living and the walks and the frolicking in the waves and the dolphins and the whales that we see. And it truly is a magnificent area to live in from a beauty aspect. Well, all that beauty came to an abrupt halt around 3 o'clock in the morning. Suddenly there was "Mama, I need your help," at our bedside. I opened my eyes, switched on my pedestal light, and looked into the face of a man who was dressed in what I could call security clothing, with a screwdriver at my neck. And I turned and looked at my husband, and lo and behold, a screwdriver at his neck being held by a man who looked very similar.
They then said to us, "I think that we better get up." So we got up, and I thought I'd better be very careful with them, because they, one wrong move, they could stab you in the stomach with a screwdriver.
But they'd also been in the house for such a long while, they had managed to find the safe. They escorted my husband upstairs and me downstairs to get the keys to the safe.
He told me I had to come up and open the safe, and he held my wrist very strongly, and I had to follow him up. He also had a screwdriver in his hand, and he said, "I must open that safe."
The ongoing trauma suffered after a home invasion is to some extent fueled by the very real possibility that the victims of the home invasion could have lost their lives, because it's happened before in Hout Bay. You're going to be killed if you don't comply.
And came upstairs into our study, opened the safe, knowing full well what was in the safe was going to be a mother lode for them, starting with a gun and ammunition and every piece of jewelry I've ever owned in my life.
They emptied the safe and then proceeded to depart.
We raised the alarm as quickly as we could. Our alarm had not gone off where the door had been opened. Somehow or another they'd managed to bypass that. And within 3 minutes we had police and cops and ADT and every security company in the neighbourhood on our doorstep, because it was an armed robbery. Okay, when the police were here at 3 o'clock in the morning, the one thing that they did bring with them were the Vambo trackers that they employ. Because of our mountainous and duned region, they found it necessary with robberies and break-ins in the neighbourhood to employ the Ovambo trackers. They're extremely agile and very good at getting through the most odd areas of the mountainside quickly and track people down. We had 2 of them in the home around about 3:30 in the morning, after they had been up on the mountainside supposedly looking for these guys. And I say supposedly because 8 weeks later, once the trauma had begun subsiding with us, I happened to go into our local Woolworths down the road to pick up some lunch for myself and Peter, and good grief, who did I walk flat bang into but the 2 robbers who were over our beds with the screwdrivers. And I thought, no, I'm seeing things. I froze in my movement. I thought, no, I'm seeing things. So I sidled up to them, and they were with a 3rd person who looked very familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on it at that point, how and where he fitted into the picture. Why would he be with them? Who is he? Anyway, I went up to the deli where they were all standing talking and ordering chicken, and I listened to their voices, and as God made green apples, I recognized the voices, but they also recognized me. But the 3rd guy that I couldn't quite pinpoint, he continued taking the order and then going to the checkout. I happened to be in the queue at the checkout, and he was right behind me. And then as I get into my car, I realize who the 3rd person was. He was one of the trackers that the police employed that was in my lounge at 3:30 in the morning, pretending to have stopped the perpetrators. Then I knew I had to get hold of the police or ADT and try and stop these guys leaving Hout Bay.
When she finally got through to the police, she was informed that the investigating officer wasn't on duty and she should phone back later. She tried to tell them that the people that invaded her home were currently, at the time of the call, in Woolworths, shopping or certainly in the immediate area. Layla subsequently contacted the police the following day and also returned to Woolworths, where she reviewed security camera footage.
Anyway, next morning my son-in-law and I went down to Woolworths and we met with the policemen from our local police station and we viewed the footage of their closed-circuit TVs.
The two persons who were in a home she recognized, and the third person, who she later realized was the tracker that had been brought to her house by the police, was also identified by an independent third-party security witness as a police tracker.
The third guy immediately was recognized by the security officer at Woolworths, who said to the policeman with us, "Oh, that's one of your tracker guys." And I said, well, this is exactly what I'd told the police that morning on the phone, that it's an inside job. How are we supposed to live in this neighborhood? How are we supposed to live in this country if our police force are aiding and abetting the robbers? Nothing's ever been done about it. I have heard, though, through the grapevine of Hout Bay and the security people here, that those two robbers were let free because the police did not have enough evidence. And friends of ours who've been robbed in this neighborhood in a similar style have been now beaten up by these guys. It sounds like the same people.
Over here you'll see a couple of raiders returning from a home invasion, a very traumatic one up in the upper valley. He's wearing gloves, carrying a bag under his left arm, balaclava. Here's the second one coming along. Gloves, balaclava, he's carrying a stick. He's carrying a big bag in his right arm, balaclava, gloves, and a bag under his shoulder. And they were walking home at 3:45 in the morning with absolutely no chance of being apprehended.
This was when he was first born. That was when I first gave birth to him.
That really is a cute shot.
Yeah.
It was April, it was a windy night. I was asleep upstairs, my son was playing his computer downstairs. And at about 1:15, I heard some screaming and shouting. And I think it must have been loud enough to bring me out of my sleep above the noise of the wind and everything. So I came running down, and as I came running down the stairs, the noise obviously got louder and louder. And at that point, I must have been awake enough to realize there was someone in the house. And as I ran through the kitchen here, I grabbed one of the chairs because I had no real weapon with me. And I started shouting, carrying the chair in front of me. And as I came around the corner, I saw a flash of someone running out the other side of the corridor. This is the corridor that I came running from that side through here. And I met my son roughly by the washing machine. The next minute, I heard the window glass break. They broke through the glass on this window, trying to get out as fast as they could. And I can only presume it was because here I was running with a chair screaming, and I'm guessing I was slightly bigger than they were. So I went to my son, and it took a while to realize that he was bleeding. And he had this gash on his cheek, and I tried to stop it bleeding, and it just wouldn't stop. No matter how hard I pushed it, it just would not stop. And I had this conflict of whether to try and get to a phone or try and stop the bleeding.
And then I got a call early on the Friday morning, and Charlie phoned me and he said, I live in Hout Bay, and he said to me, Conrad's been stabbed, you've got to come. So I jumped into the car and I drove as fast as I could. And I didn't want to disturb him because I realized he was probably trying to get help, and I wasn't sure how bad it was because he didn't tell me on the phone.
And he eventually collapsed while I was still trying to stop the bleeding. And I think after 5-10 minutes, he had stopped moving. So I got to the phone. And I called for help. And I just sat with him. And when the guys arrived, it was already too late. He had bled out.
And I ran through the kitchen where the garage is, and there was just blood everywhere. I could not believe the amount of blood on the floors, on the walls, everywhere. And the police were sort of standing around in the kitchen, and where you're seeing now is the table in the kitchen, and Conrad was lying on the floor here, and his chest was open. They had put some monitors on his heart, and they turned to me and they said, "I'm sorry, we couldn't save him." I realized then that he had died. I just sat down by his body, and I just gave him what I know is energy healing or Reiki. And I said to him, "Conrad, I know you've died, but I know that you're still here and you're in shock, and we're here, and it's okay to go." Charlie was just standing by the side of the corner, and there was blood all over his t-shirt, and he just said, "I'm sorry, I couldn't save him." And I just realized how much guilt he was carrying because he said that. The body lay uncovered for about 8 hours in his kitchen. And the police were all around and looking for clues. And eventually they had to take his body away. And I saw his body in the morgue, and I saw the level of the wound, and it was just horrific. It was just huge. It was the biggest gash I've ever seen on his cheek. It was just the most senseless crime because all they got away with was a stupid cell phone. And they took a life. For what? They took a boy's life, a son. And it's just so pointless. His death was so pointless because he did what maybe other people wouldn't have done. He stood and faced his attackers. Yeah, and they've just never found these guys who did it.
They've carried out home invasion after home invasion, and finally, in the case of Conrad, a murder, and got away with it. Certainly up to now, they've got away with it. Living not far from me, up on the mountain fringes in Hughenden Meadows, is Bev. Bev lives 1 kilometre from the local police station, and she's had up close to 30 break-ins at her home. Bev no longer buys new clothes. Bev sleeps in her clothes because she expects to be woken up at any time. Along here we have the route through which criminals gain regular access to Bev's property, which is just about here.
I have a really bad track record for burglaries on Fridays. Friday afternoons are nightmares for me, and to the extent that I've had burglaries on Friday the 13th, and I'm not suspicious, 3 times. I've had my front door kicked down numerous times in the day and at night. So one night I was sleeping, I was dead asleep, and I heard this weird noise. I didn't know what on earth was going on. I shot out of bed. In my not being properly awake, I thought maybe my parrot's cage had fallen over, which it was an absolute impossibility. But I just couldn't think what on earth was going on. And I ran up the passage into the lounge, and I suddenly realized there were guys in the lounge with torches. And in this half asleep state I was in, I thought it was the security company, and for a split second I actually felt quite relaxed about the whole thing. And then I realized the alarm was going off, And I thought, no, I mean, there's no way it could be the security company. I'd been broken into. And I ran down the passage again into the bedroom. I closed the door and realized I had a coat hanger hanging on the door handle, and I couldn't close the door. The coat hanger was in the way. But by then, I was just too scared. I couldn't open the door again, to get the coat hanger off, because I knew that these guys were in my house. And so I just leant against the door and just waited until, it sounded as if everybody had gone. And I eventually opened the door and I came back up the passage. And when I looked, I hadn't noticed the first time. I looked and my front door I didn't have a front door. It was lying flat on the ground. And these guys had obviously just come and taken a huge kick at it and kicked the whole door down.
I was approached to stop writing my blog, or more correctly, not making it public. Tonight, before you went to bed, you could find out what happened last night, so you could better defend yourself.
With the amount of break-ins and that I've had, you are continually feeling as if you're under attack.
The argument put up by the police for what I was writing about, what they were actually doing when they were responding to crimes where people had been traumatized, held up at gunpoint, knife point, with people smashing their way through doors and the world's coming to an end for them. The police don't want me to let these people know they might take a long time to get there.
Nobody ever gets here on time. The police don't come, the security company don't come, and these guys just, it's a free-for-all.
And they asked me to close down the blog, and I refused. And it degenerated to a point where I was sent an email, and the words used in the email were, "We're speaking to you now before they do the nasty," or "we let them do the nasty."
And apart from the freedom that they take away from you to move around Hout Bay, to enjoy Hout Bay, there's also, I have friends who are nervous about coming to my house. They just don't feel safe. I mean, I had friends out from England and they've got 2 young children. And I've got the space and we're really good friends. There was absolutely no ways they were going to stay with me in this house.
Bev was actually at the local police station reporting one of these break-ins when her phone rang, and it was someone telling her that someone was busy breaking into her house again.
I don't like the idea of being chased out of my home. I do have a right to live here. I have lived here for close on 17 years now. It suits me. It's the room for the dogs and that type of thing. And quite honestly, you just cannot run forever.
So now we look out the doors all the time. It starts getting dark and our heads bob one side to the other side. Well, it's because of the break-in. So what happened? Annalene and I were sitting here at the dining room table eating a meal and watching some series on the computer. Finished up, put the stuff in the kitchen and went into the room on the side there. We go into the room, it was what time?
It was exactly 9:30.
Exactly 9:30. So we go in there and maybe a minute or 2 later, at most, there was this door here. We didn't know which door, but that sound of a handle going like this, down and up and being released. It's not a sound like a tree twig falling or an animal, or very distinct. There's a door trying to be opened. So I look at Annalene.
And I look at Craig. And we're both like...
This is not good.
Yeah.
This is not even close to good. So I get up, I go out the door, lights are off here and outside, and I walk towards the store here and switch on the lights, and I look out, And this far away from me, just crouched down in front of the door, are 4 men wearing balaclavas and big thick clubs, looking up at me like this. So there's like a moment of like freeze. It's half a second, but it's like they're looking, it's like I can see the picture. They're looking, I'm looking. Nothing's happening yet. And then go. So I move. I run to the back here and activate on my key the alarm system, the siren, the emergency. So that's screaming now. And I grab a baton, defense baton, and I run back here. And now these guys are standing by the window, just outside. The one guy's got his club and he's just striking. Straight on the window, once, twice, and the whole window is like reverberating.
So I'm sitting there trying to know what to do and thinking I need to help Craig. And suddenly I hear all this glass breaking.
Glass shot literally, back door, shoes at the back. And now they're starting to clap their way into the place. So what to do? So I've got this baton, like I said, and I run towards them. And my thinking is, okay, the alarm's going, and it's hard to explain. It's not deliberate thinking. It's survival, but it's thoughts that are coming to keep us safe. So they were striking through this window at me. They were from outside like this. They're trying to smack me, and I'm trying to whack them back to keep them out. And then the phone rings. And I know it's ADT, and it's a cell phone upstairs for some reason. So I run upstairs and I answer the phone and I go, ADT, they're breaking into the house, get you now. Put down the phone, run downstairs, come straight back to the window, continue the fight. And I was here. So as they would try to hit me, I would pull back and then I would strike them on their hand or on their arms. But their arms were covered with like a cloth, like a tissue paper. So it wasn't so easy, and this is not very heavy. And I would just have to try and get some force and strike them down so their arms would come against glass. At this point, it's like 2 minutes in.
Yeah.
The whole episode takes about 5 minutes. So this was the last beam that was left. This was the final separator, the link between me and them.
So I was freaking out on myself there, not knowing what to do, and I see this bell, so I come out, and I think at that point, this bell was ringing, I was screaming, you were hitting, the alarm was blaring, time was ticking, window was breaking.
Something was just holding this in place, and they were striking on this last piece of wood.
The wood was like almost completely gone, and they would have free run into the house.
And with unbelievable clarity, I had a knowing which was, if that piece breaks, the game's over. If this piece had cracked and gone, they would have stepped straight to this window and the game was over.
Down in the valley, so to speak, residents have their hands tied by first world ideals. You can only meet force with an equal amount of force, and the perpetrator first has to demonstrate what level of force he's going to use against you. So if he lifts a knife and stabs you in the shoulder, at that point you can only escalate your response to the next level, but it might be too late.
For me, they came to kill Craig and to rape me.
It was like, I'm not going to stop these guys. I'm not going to be able to protect Annalene. Who knows what's going to happen? However many seconds from that, 5, 10, 15, they turned and they left. They bolted, and we stood here looking at each other going, whoa.
Yeah. The alarm stops. I don't know how long it takes for the panic button to stop, for the alarm to stop blaring, and then we press the panic button again. Still ADT didn't show up, nothing. It took them 19 minutes to come to the scene. I'm not even talking about the police, because SAPS came an hour and a half after the scene, like quite uninterested.
But there was no effort made to track them, trace them, try and intercept them on their way home. No one is chasing criminals. Nobody's trying to get the perpetrators and sort out the problem before they come back tomorrow night and break into a neighbour's house. And the night after that, when they're breaking down the road, and the night after that, when they break into the next secure estate.
The amount of break-ins and robberies. Last week we were at the bottom of our road, and we had this woman screaming. Absolutely screaming. We couldn't find her, didn't know where she was. We go into the radio, 2 guys, balaclavas, pangas and knives running around. It's their second or third break-in for the night. And 2 days before that, and 3 days before that, and.
There were a number of occasions where the criminals simply went into the house next door and held that family up, and while everyone was running around outside having a look, the criminals were in the house next door.
When we hear the alarm go off of the neighbours, I start shaking. Or when the dogs bark for longer than 7 minutes, this is alert. So what is really... It's no longer the coming home. It's no longer the... Well, it is coming home, but it's no longer coming home in a serene place where just everything falls off, where you land, where you can be quiet.
It takes away that just being able to drop down and be peaceful at home. Sounds, noises, everything creates a particular survival impulse inside that's consuming. We've got to be hyper careful now. Anything can happen anytime. It's not like I've been traumatized and now I've got to be careful. The shit's going down. And it's happening all the time.
The crime that residents in Hout Bay fear most is robbery with aggravating circumstances. Robbery is a robbery with a weapon. Aggravating circumstances means the weapon that was used could have made the victim think it could cause their death. In 2004, 33 robberies with aggravating circumstances. And if you come and have a look at 2013, that's 143 robberies with aggravating circumstances. That's one every second day. It's become apparent there's 2 kinds of justice in the valley. We've got the justice meted out in IY, where the community are frustrated with the police inaction and have taken to mob justice to sort out their problems.
The community of IY is very tired of the police, because the police is also involved with those criminals. So when the people is phoning, the community is phoning to the police station to come solve this problem of the criminals, they're not coming. So that's why the community is so angry, and then they're just going to mob killings, kill these criminals.
The entire community gets together and a stone is cast by each person so that no one can be held responsible. So we've got this scenario where we've got a third world crime fighting solution in amongst us, where outside in the valley we're having to conform to first world crime fighting ideals.
Robberies in Hout Bay are definitely aided and abetted by the police and the members of the police force here. And that how can we continue like this until they clear out their problems within the police force, which is employing the people who are helping the robbers rob our homes?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky, I guess. I could have been stabbed anywhere, along my torso, my neck, and easily could have died from it. And nothing would have happened. The guy wouldn't have cared, and the police, what would they have done? The guy still hasn't been really caught, nothing. Yeah.
The ripple effect that it has in the lives of everyone around. Can't describe what it feels like to lose a son, to have to bury a son in the ground. There's no words to describe what it feels like. But it's the biggest pain in the heart that you can ever imagine.
A lot of people have asked me, why I'm still staying here. And for me, after what has happened, Conrad is part of this house now. His blood is soaked into the house. And For me to leave would just be so wrong. So, I'm happy to stay here. I'm happy to be here.
Since Conrad's murder, his dad, Charles Griss, living in the same house, has had another break-in. Still continues to suffer from the ongoing crime and violence in this valley.
If everybody runs, I mean, the authorities are never going to have to do anything about it because the population's changing all the time. And I think the authorities have to do something about it. You know, this business about, well, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't go here, you shouldn't walk down this road, or what on earth was somebody doing out at 11 o'clock at night, things like that. That's a load of nonsense. I mean, those are things that people around the world can do. In other cities in South Africa, they can do that. I mean, we live in a place like Hout Bay to enjoy the outdoor activity. But, suddenly guys who are riding their mountain bikes up on the sand dunes are being held up at gunpoint, things like that. And now they have this way of making you feel that you're the one who's in the wrong because, well, why were you there? After all my experiences, the one thing I do know is I cannot rely on the police. They're never going to help me. The security company, I don't think they really want to get here on time.
With the overall crime figures in the valley, I don't think spiralling out of control is too strong a word. The victims of those crimes and those that are still going to be hit, we still have to look at burglaries, and these stand at a mind-boggling 620 for 2013.
There'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble. Trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for you and me. There'll be no sadness, no sorrow, no trouble. Trouble I see.